more interactive. Um, so Leonard, I'll let you figure out how to unmute everybody there, and you guys feel free to just kind of jump in. If for some reason your mic is noisy, Leonard might mute you out. And if that's the case, you need to ask a question, just ping Leonard with the chat window, and he'll unmute you at that point. But anyways, I'm gonna get started. So as Leonard mentioned, we had a lot of conversations. We had people ask questions, and there was a little bit of seems like there's a little bit of confusion around what is UTM, what it means, and what it actually does. So we thought we'd put together, it's a little bit of a technical training, and I'll dive down a little bit into some of the technical stuff, but not too much. And really what I want to do is get a sense from you guys if it's a good level of technical depth. If you want to see more technical depth, a little bit less, what areas you'd want to see us focus on. And we'd like to do a little bit more of this type of stuff to just get a general sense, or get general type of knowledge or education of perimeter security of UTM next-gen firewall. And you see that I put up there, understanding UTM and next-gen firewall, and you'll understand that in a little bit. So before I dive right into UTM, I want to play a little bit of a recorded video that shows how hackers can hack. And I have a couple of things here, and I think it's important for us to understand how these the malware is done nowadays, how these breaches are done, because when you understand that, you'll understand the the power of UTM, the power of having proper cybersecurity, and what it's actually doing, what it's preventing underneath the covers. So I'm going to start with a video that you can find a lot of these on YouTube. Actually, I was starting to actually record. Oops, I was accidentally muted by somebody else. All right, so I was actually gonna try to record the stuff myself, but I realized there's so many people already done it. So what I did is I just took a clipping of somebody else's, and I'll kind of step you through what's going on here in this video. So over here you see this guy's got two windows up here. One is Windows, and the other one is Linux. He's got Metasploit on here. And what he's showing over here is on the Windows part, he's showing he scanned this file, and it's coming up clean with AVG over here. So the file itself, he just put on there, can be sent via email or whatever the case may be, but it's got no virus. But you see as he opens it, it's just something wrapped into WinRAR. And he's running over here, you can see he's running Metasploit. And this is kind of, think of this as a command and control up here. And he's doing these things manually, typing these things in, but typically something like this would happen automatically in a command and control. So you see he's just showing up here that, okay, he sees things that are installed on the system, on the Windows system, just for that system phone home to him. And as he's going through and looking and saying, okay, look, here's all the things installed, I'm going in here and I see that AVG is actually installed here on the system. So AVG did not catch my initial, what I call an agent. It's not really a virus, it's just a phone home agent, because it's not really a virus. It did not catch it because that agent, there's nothing malicious on it, it's not going to be called, and it also runs in memory. It's a PowerShell script. So what he's doing here, you can see he's taking AVG and he's uninstalling it remotely with no interaction from the user. And this is kind of like a crude way. Obviously this is doing it manually. The guys who write the malware, they're going to do it a little bit better. And you see this little window come up, hey, you don't have virus protection on the Windows side. So the point that I'm trying to make with this little session here is it's pretty easy to set up a C2 server using Metasploit. This is a Kali Linux over here on the left side. And on the right side, by executing what he did was WinRAR, execute it. And right now he's showing, like, look, there's no AVG installed now. There's no way to scan it. It's gone. AVG is completely gone. And now this agent can go and download and own this computer completely. Now this agent could go and download ransomware, for instance, if it wanted to. So the point here is that hackers nowadays, the way they work is there is guys out there that they do nothing but they write these little agents and wrap them into whatever type of files. Other ones run these C2 servers. Other ones find ways they can host malware out there on some legitimate websites. Other ones do the distribution of these agents or malware, right, through email campaigns, through Facebook clicks, through stolen credentials on LinkedIn or something else, and that way they can get the stolen credentials. They can get their friends to click on something, because it's a trusted source or a trusted email. So there's a lot of these people working together in combination to make this stuff happen. So the reason why this one is important, and I want to point it out, is for a couple of reasons. One, it's if you're only using protection on your computer, the computer that you're trying to protect, there's ways around that, and this is an obvious one, right? That, hey, it's not detected by in this case, AVG, by the endpoint protection, because it's running PowerShell, a PowerShell script. Number two, it can also disable that protection before it starts pulling down something that would be detected. And at that point, the computer is completely owned. And from here, probably the next step is that agent would phone home, and this system over here would maybe get 1 million of these, and then on the dark web, they'd put out, hey, for sale, got 1 million agents infected in Windows computers, bidding starts at X, right? And some guy who writes ransomware would buy that, get his ransomware hosted on some web server, all the agents would download it, and then bam, all of a sudden everybody's infected. So speaking of ransomware, I'm just going to go through this really quickly. This is obviously a big problem for everybody in 2016, and in the last week, it's all of a sudden everybody became a ransomware expert with WannaCry coming out. So ransomware is definitely getting better because we funded it last year. Last year, just according to the FBI, there was over $1 billion in ransoms paid. So if you think about a company with $1 billion revenue, it's called a unicorn, right? So in 2016, ransomware, the ransomware became a unicorn, right, in the startup world. We're talking Uber, Airbnb. We're talking, tech companies that grow really fast. Well, ransomware is right there with them, and it's our fault because we funded them, and we were paying the ransom, and now they're getting a lot better, right? And WannaCry is just the first example of it. So it goes it begs the question: how hard is it to actually make ransomware, right? If you decided, hey, you know what, I want to be a bad guy. I want to go out there and I want to do this ransomware thing because these guys are making $1 billion. I want part of it. And surprisingly, it's actually not that hard. And I got this really quick video, and actually I got this one from Sophos of how easy it is to create a ransomware. But these sites are out there, right? On the Tor network, you could go out there and find these. This one specifically is called Satan. So if you look, it's like how to make ransomware. So from start to end, this video is going to show you. Let's create an account here. You got to put in the CAPTCHA, make sure it's not a robot. Set up an account over here and log in. Again, CAPTCHA. So.
And for the record, Andrew has not done any ransomware, so that you all know.
I'm glad you're putting things for the record for me. So over here, simple things, right? Ransom is that you put how much you want it, 1 Bitcoin. Multiplier, it's after so many days how much it goes up, and then so boom, malware is created. So I didn't even have enough time to explain all those things, but you put in all the parameters there, and now in the video you're already downloading this ransomware file. So literally within less than a minute, you have this full ransomware file created already. And not only that, but they also host the C2 server, right? They'll also do all of the support for you. They do everything. They'll collect the money and then they'll deposit and pay percentage. So they take a percentage. They do the iTunes model, right, or the Apple Store model, where they'll do all the stuff and they'll take 30% and give you 70% of it, So basically, they created it all for you. You don't have to be anybody. All you have to do is just take this file and distribute it somehow. And you know what? It's so easy to find on the Tor networks. It's so easy to find somebody that will actually distribute it for you for pretty low cost. Like, here's an example. If you go out there, here's one interesting one out there for sale. Like, you can find tons of these things. For certain Bitcoin, it's hey, we'll do 24/7 DDoS attack. On Rent IoT botnet network. So you can go out there and you can buy this stuff in bulk. You can buy pretty much whatever you want, right? And people do this as a service because somebody is good at doing something very specific, and they go out there and they sell that service, and then somebody else can take all of these services, piece it together to orchestrate an attack. And you don't even have to be technical at all to orchestrate this attack. You just go out there and buy the right things. And they're not expensive. You look at it like US, $23, $21, right? It's not a lot to buy this type of stuff. So the point I'm trying to make, not a very good point, but there's lots of jobs available out there on what people call the dark web, and just kind of review some of the things, right? So there's people that I'll kind of start at the bottom here. People that create 0 days. These are a little bit harder. They made it better for the good guys to discover this because a lot of companies are paying $30,000 or as bonuses to analysts who find 0 days. So that's a little bit better, but on the dark web, you could probably make quite a bit more. At certain points, they were going somewhere between 100,000 to 500,000 per 0 day, as if you just go out there and straight up sell a 0 day exploit. So malware kits is another one. Malware kits is you create a malware, but you create it in a way that it could be regenerated. So that Satan ransomware site, that's an example of a malware kit. Somebody created one ransomware, and it takes that kit and creates millions of other ransomwares. And the hard part for us is now all of these different ransomware files are being generated, different variants are being generated, and we got to keep up with all these signatures. And it makes it, obviously makes it harder to detect all this stuff because the malware kit, what it does is it takes a core function like a ransomware and it creates brand new automated, kind of custom ransomware files, and each one is different, and each one needs a different signature because it's a different variant. So another part is collection of ransom payments or the interaction piece. There's the agents that I showed you, which is not really a virus, but it's something that sneaks on a computer undetected, and then it could do whatever you want it to do. And then there's of course the distribution. There's phishing. There's voice phishing. There's all these different campaigns to go out and get the malware or the agents out there. Using vulnerabilities, and actually WannaCry is an example, right? Using a Windows vulnerability to spread the agents or the malware across there, being able to do that. That usually combines either in a 0 day or in this case it wasn't even a 0 day. It was a vulnerability that wasn't patched. And hosting of malware. So this one is important for a couple of reasons that we're going to get into a little bit more. But we always think of, oh, this thing's communicating to some site in Russia or China or somewhere else. Actually, 80% of the malware that's hosted out there somewhere is actually hosted on legitimate websites. Like, something like joespizzashop.com. Joe's Pizza Shop wasn't probably patched. It's using WordPress. Somebody found it. They broke into it, and now all of a sudden they got this little storage up there on joespizzashop.com. They'll sell that access to somebody else who wants to, like say if I wanted to take that ransomware I created, put it up on joespizzashop.com, and then take somebody else who's selling agent access and tell them to point the agents to joespizzashop.com/Andrew's malware/ransomware.exe, and it'll pull those down and infect all those files. So that's kind of one way to do it, or sorry, infect all those computers. All right, so lovely picture of a yard. This is not my yard, but now getting into the defenses. So I want you guys to think of perimeter security, UTM, next-gen firewall, the same way you would think of the physical world. So this is a cool yard. Obviously, kids live here and everything. And there's a nice fence around this yard. And we build fences around yards for security reasons, but there's really two reasons why we do that. And it's the same thing in the cyber world as it is the physical world. And the two things are, number one, you want to keep threats on the outside from coming in, right? You got a safe area over here, and you want to keep the bad stuff. You know, maybe in this case it's, I don't know, a raccoon, a bear, a wolf, whatever it is, but you want to keep it out, right? And maybe it's predators, maybe it's people. And the second thing you want to do is you want to keep the good stuff from wandering out and getting hurt. So you don't want your kids wandering out somewhere, getting on some train tracks, on a road, you know, whatever, but wandering out in bad places. And firewalls, UTMs, next-gen firewalls, it's kind of a similar thing. If you think about it, there's two functions on all of the engines there. One is you keep the bad guys from getting into your network, but also you keep the people that are inside your network from clicking on a phishing link, you know, from going somewhere on some website that's malicious, that has you know, maybe malware on there or something else. You keep them from going accidentally to bad places. It serves the same function, and there is various engines. So typically you think of a firewall was where it started, and then there's really 5 core functions, and I put these separately to make a point here because there is some confusion around what's a next-gen firewall and what's a UTM. But there is really 5 functions of a next-gen firewall, and a UTM is kind of actually pretty similar. So these 5 functions are IPS, antivirus, application control, web filtering, and DLP. And UTM, it's exactly the same thing. Now, these are the 5 core functions. And I could even break it down more into 2 functions if needed, but I'm not going to do that because it gets into how the inspection actually works. Anything else added on top of these is usually a combination. Like say if somebody says, oh, well, we do advanced persistent threat protection. Great, it sounds fancy and everything, but usually that's a combination of using web filtering, application control, antivirus, and IPS, you know, together as a whole to do this advanced threat protection. So an example of WannaCry, right? With WannaCry, we blocked it at 2 phases using IPS and antivirus. Those are the 2 phases that we were using. Typically, ransomware, there is a few phases. We use web filtering, IPS, and antivirus and application control to block the whole function of getting ransomware infected. You know, because it's kind of an advanced persistent threat. But typically, it's these systems working in conjunction. And I'm going to go through each one of those and kind of explain a little bit of each one, how they work, and really how you can test to see if, hey, my IPS is working well or it's set up correctly. Because this is a lot of times this is kind of where there is confusion, where there's problems is, you know, you're not sure because it's one of these things where you go in, you get a UTM, you set it up, and it's like, great, we're secure. And you know, is it set up correctly, or is everything put in place correctly? And there's a lot of times there is uncertainty. And in actuality, whenever you look at the stats, the majority of UTMs are set up incorrectly and completely incorrectly. None of the UTM functions are even turned on. So sometimes it's not has nothing to do with you know, your engineer setting it up incorrectly. It's maybe they set it up correctly and somebody came in after the fact troubleshooting something and put in any except rule. All of a sudden things started working well and they left it there. You know, so that's sometimes it's just a matter of that.
If anyone has any questions, anything like Andrew said, confusing, frustrating, if anyone has questions, you want to raise your hand in the chat room or go ahead and we can open up now if you'd like.
Yeah, feel free to jump in.
Interrupt Andrew when you want.
Yeah. So there's some other functions as well that came and went from UTM, and the reason why is because things change, right? And I'll give you some examples of this. As an example, anti-spam used to be a function of UTM, and it used to be whenever there was always mail servers. Now that mail has kind of gone to be a hosted application, anti-spam, the whole mail function kind of moved off and it became its own thing because it's no longer part of your perimeter. This is a hosted application. Another one is web application firewall. So at a certain point, and even some UTMs still have WAF, usually it's a limited version, it's a much lesser version But since web servers are always hosted applications somewhere, then WAF became its own service, and it kind of grew on its own, became better. It got disconnected from the UTM and next-gen firewall. And then you have other types of services that are still kind of there in flux, and you're not sure, or people aren't sure exactly where they belong, such as sandboxing. So for those of you that aren't sure what sandboxing is, FireEye was kind of this pioneer or the first big name in sandboxing. Since then, some companies have tried to do it host-based, such as Cylance or SentinelOne. There's good and bad about sandboxing. From our perspective, we've been waiting to implement it, and the reason why is this, and I'll give you just a couple examples. Sometimes when a new technology like this jumps into the market, it's difficult to manage properly, and also it's not as effective as you want it to be. And with sandboxing, I'll give you a quick example. So sandboxing became this, oh my God, we can detect anything. That's great, right? Because what it does is a file comes across, and basically what would happen in this case, your UTM or firewall will say, hey, this is a file. I don't have any signatures for it. I don't know what it is. And the sandbox would spin up a bunch of VMs, Windows 95, Windows, probably not 95, but Windows 10, Windows 8, maybe Mac, maybe Linux, whatever the case may be, and it'd take that file and it'd throw it into all of those things. It would execute it, and it would monitor all of the pieces of the OS and see what this executable is doing. And then it would give it a score, and it would say, oh, well, this is clearly something bad. Maybe this is bad, or no, this is good. This behavior looks like it's nothing bad at all. And then that way it would say, okay, this is good to go, no problem. Or then it would go back and say, oh, wait a minute, that file I just sent through, that was actually a really bad file. You guys need to take action. So it wasn't really a preventive thing, but it was more of a early detection, type of thing that would hopefully help you out. So as this thing became really popular, right? FireEye was selling these things by the pallets. It's extremely expensive as well. So the hackers started to go, okay, this sandboxing thing is a little bit of a pain in the ass. We need to get around it. And they were going back and forth, back and forth. One of the cool ones that I like of how they got around it was, well, most sandboxes, they'll spin up a VM, they'll execute the thing, they'll watch it, and then within 30 seconds, they already have an answer, right? So they shut down the VM and they kill it. Well, you started seeing a lot of malware and even like ransomware that you execute it and it'll just sit there and it'll wait 31 seconds, do nothing, and then on second number 32, then it starts doing all the stuff. Well, completely killed the whole sandboxing idea, right? So it made it completely ineffective, easy to do. So the sandboxing people went out there and started going, what can we do about this? They found a way to accelerate the time. So within 5 seconds, they can make it seem like 5 hours went by, which helped them out. Of course, the malware people came and said, okay, well, let's check if they're doing that, and then let's check the code. And the sandboxing people said, okay, well, let's figure out how to resolve this. So they started looking and saying, okay, if this executable is checking if we're accelerating the time, it's clearly something bad. So, but as you can see, they're going back and forth, and this sometimes takes years of this back and forth to tweak and tune these technologies. Sandboxing, great technology. It's not that easy to implement, not that easy to manage. It's getting better, and it's getting to the point where we're probably going to be adding it in the MDS cloud as part of the standard service. So at a certain point, you'll just kind of, hey, it's there, it's enabled, and it's protecting you. You don't have to do anything. It'll just be there. That's how MDS rolls. All right, moving on. I know we don't have a lot of time. So IPS, I'm going to go through this kind of quickly, and if you want me to slow down a little bit, just let me know. So IPS has a lot of names. Intrusion prevention started with IDS, which is intrusion detection. Basically, the difference is IPS actually blocks the packets instead of just detecting them. You heard it called IDP, deep packet inspection, all kinds of different stuff. But at the end of the day, the thing is looking for certain patterns, certain strings that know is malicious. I'll give you some examples. Doing directory traversal. This is kind of an older one. Back when I did pen testing, this was a common one that we check for. So, you go to a website, and if they didn't prevent directory traversal, you could actually do some commands and go .// cmd.exe, and then from here, after running a command prompt, you could actually go and tell it to pull down wget or FTP command or something, and tell it to pull down some tools. And some of those tools could just be something like netcat, where it from the web server would connect out to you and create a reverse telnet or reverse SSH session. So nowadays, most web servers, they're not going to allow directory traversal, but this is an example of what an IPS would detect and block. So if you put this in your URL, you should see that the IPS blocks this. It's not going to allow it. Another one is a SQL injection. So IPS, that's a typical thing, very basic type stuff. Blocking a SQL injection command. In this case, this looks a little bit weird because it's using a certain encoding here. The %20 is a space. Instead of, whenever you can't use a space, you use a %20. So basically, here you see username equals 1 or 1 equals 1. Password equals 1 or 1 equals 1. And what this means is, in a SQL command, if you put in 1 or 1 equals 1 or 1 plus 1 equals 1, it'll always return a positive answer. So basically what you're telling it is say yes for username and say yes for password. So it means you automatically authenticated whenever you do this. Again, you put this in, if you put this in and you have an IPS that's properly set up, it'll block it. It'll detect this and it'll block it. And I'll actually show you in Shield test that we're using very similar command to this, and I'll kind of show you where it is in the JavaScript. And IPS is a hard thing to set up and tune properly. We have approximately 19,000 IPS rules and signatures that prevent all this type of stuff from happening, right? So when there's any kind of this, even older school, because sometimes we see people are waiting and bringing back some of these older SQL injections, these older attacks, because they're still relevant, but they're just old, and a lot of people have just kind of done away with the signatures. We have around 19,000 IPS signatures and rules to prevent all of these type of attacks. So moving on, virus. So viruses, it seems like it's an easy thing to set up, but there's actually a lot of stuff that goes along with it, and I'll kind of show you some of the things. So some of the things you should tune, for example, is change the default size that's scanned. It seems like an easy one, but most people do not do this. I'll give you an example, and I'll use Fortinet just because I love Fortinet. The product is very complicated, but they're very, very good at detecting threats, and they're good at from the technical perspective. So Fortinet, as an example, on most of the products, it has a default size of 10 meg. So anything over 10 meg, the default action is don't scan and let it pass through. And that's a very normal thing out there. So me as a hacker, knowing this, I will always make my malware to be 11 meg, just because I can get past a lot of these UTMs. And if I can get past 90% of them, awesome. It's great for me as a hacker. So you guys as MSSPs, as security providers, you should always go and change the default settings. MDS automatically takes care of the stuff for you, so you don't even have to worry about it. So some other things, right? Inspect all files, not just executables and scripts, because now they're bundling things into other types of files. And I'll kind of give you some examples of this. A simple one would be a zip file, or a RAR file, or anything that's packaged up. That's a pretty easy one. But also being able to bundle it in things like PDFs and Word documents. We're seeing a lot more of that type of stuff happening now as well. I'm sure you guys see it as well. So how do you test it? Well, the easy way to do it is just download a virus, right? Hey, download a virus. Was I able to download it? That's maybe a dangerous way of doing it, and a lot of people are afraid that they're going to actually execute the virus, which that's a fair thing. But because of that, there's a thing called ICAR, EICAR, and ICAR is a virus that's non-malicious that everybody uses as kind of a test virus. You could go to ICAR, I think it's icar.com, but you could go there and you could compile your own virus. You could use, I think they have one that's compiled already for you. Shield Test uses ICAR. Another one that I like is actually one that the FortiGuard put together, and I'm going to show you this one really quick. And just so you guys know, I am actually not behind MDS right now, and I did that on purpose just so that I could show you some of this stuff. But over here, metal.fortiguard.com/test, they put it together a very good test, and what this does is this tests just your antivirus, and that's it. Shield Test tests a few more things, but this does a very thorough test of your antivirus. What it does is plain text file, then it's got a zip file, and then it starts going through and going. It uses the ICAR file in all of these, but it goes through and starts zipping it up to 10 times, right? So a 10 times zip file. Is your gateway antivirus able to take that zip file that's zipped 10 times, unpackage it 10 times, and scan it and detect that virus? What about a tar file, a tar GZ, a RAR, and all these different encodings? So even a password protected zip file. And this one seems a little bit weird. We actually leveraged this. There's a patent on this, but there's technology that actually can scan password protected zip files and detect if they have a virus in them as well. But if you run this, you'll be able to see, how well your antivirus or gateway antivirus is doing on detecting these viruses. So as you guys know, maybe we get a lot of virus definition updates. We get approximately 1.3 million a week. That equates to about 200,000 an hour, and that's another default that you want to change is how often you get signatures, right? So if you think about the outbreak of WannaCry, that thing spread really, really fast, and a lot of these dangerous ones, they spread fast. If you're only updating once a day, well, heck, you could be completely infected, before you even get the update. That update could have been sitting there for almost the entire day, and you didn't get it just because your settings were set to update, once a day. So make sure it's at least once an hour that you're getting those updates, or you even have some kind of a push mechanism. So if any of you guys are familiar with VirusTotal, for the people out there that do malware, this is a very common place to visit. VirusTotal is a place where people take something what they think or feel is a virus, and they upload it to VirusTotal, or if they found a virus, they upload it there. So statistics for the last 7 days, you can see some of it tapered off a little bit, but per day over here, you can see we're reaching 2 million submissions of viruses per day. Down here it's a little bit less, and this is actually per country, so it's a lot more. Obviously there's a lot of duplicates, there's other things, but there is a lot of viruses that get submitted, and there's a lot of real viruses. And then whenever you think about it, it's like, holy cow, 1.3 million virus definitions a week? That can't be right. Well, it's true. I mean, that's how many variants actually get created out there. It's pretty insane, but that's a true story. So if you have a antivirus system, especially at the gateway, that is saying, hey, we have a total of 100,000 signatures, or we get whatever 5,000 updates a day, that's very, very little. That's not a lot of updates at all. Just to kind of understand the how much of the malware there is out there. All right, moving along. Let's go past antivirus, and as you guys know, we have around 2 million updates per week. It's around, I think, 300,000 an hour or something like that. I'm going to go to DLP and quickly kind of go through DLP, because DLP is kind of its own thing. It's data leak prevention. And what DLP does is there's two schools of thoughts with DLP. The one that we don't do and the one that we do. The one that we don't do is not very many people do this well, and it's really hard to do it well. And it's, hey, we got secret information, maybe a government agency, maybe some kind of like top secret, whatever it is, and we want to prevent espionage. And that's really hard to do because at the end of the day, you can always take a picture of a screen, you can always write something down, and it's really hard to do that type of DLP properly. You know, when there's actually something that valuable. The other type of DLP is, you know, let's say I'm working at a place, and let's just say I'm an administrative assistant, and I met somebody at a bar. I met some girl, and her name was Sally, right? And then I'm exchanging some emails, phone numbers, whatever, and then I come to work on Monday, and Sally also happens to be the name of the person in HR or maybe in finance. And then I take this list of customer information, maybe credit card numbers, maybe I'm working in healthcare and it's patient information, and I need to email it to Sally. Well, by accident, I email it to the Sally that I met, and Sally happens to be a Russian hacker or whatever the case may be, right? So the DLP basically is trying to prevent these type of mistakes from happening, which there's been a lot of them, and you know, it's like, you know, by accident this information was leaked, that information was leaked. Oftentimes it's not on purpose, it's done by accident. But the DLP that we do, and probably 90% of the DLP implementations out there, are to prevent these type of accidents or mistakes from happening. And I don't have this set up, but to test DLP, it's actually pretty simple. Just take a sample credit card number, and you could go into any form that's non-HTTPS, that's just HTTP, plug in that credit card number, hit submit, and you should get a DLP error if you're getting DLP inspection. There's sample credit card numbers that you could just Google for them. And in fact, let me just do that really quick. Go sample credit card numbers. And you see even up here, right? MasterCard, Visa, you see them coming up right here. And they match the pattern, so a DLP will actually block this stuff. And I'll show you where Shield Test is doing that in a bit here as well. And again, feel free to interrupt me if you have a question. So, going on, application control. Application control, again, think of this stuff as that fence, right? You have a degree of control, and usually when people think about application control, they think about the second part of, hey, I want to prevent people from using Facebook, online games, using certain type of applications. That's true. That's what it's for. But also, it's also used a lot for identifying types of applications that are security threats. And a big part of it is botnet or C2, any kind of militia applications, hacking tools, those type of things. So it goes both ways. Again, that fence, keeping the bad stuff from coming in, and also keeping the wandering from going out to places, or doing things that are maybe even time wasters, or doing things that are dangerous. And that one's pretty easy to test, right? It's, you know, hey, if you block social media and, you know, open up Facebook, you know, or whatever the case may be. And I'll show you some other ways to test it as well. We have around 5,800 application control rules to prevent this type of stuff, or to control this type of stuff overall. Web filtering. Web filtering is a great way to do security, and again, security and control as well. So from a security perspective, you know, people are always saying, hey, train your users not to click on links. It's a great thing to do, but at the same time, these guys are getting better and better and better, you know, at doing great phishing campaigns that are very hard to recognize. Other things, blocking things like anonymizer proxies, malicious websites, and then just like your general type stuff, like, you know, pornography, you know, unethical type stuff, time wasting. And these are pretty easy to test. So, you know, hey, can I get to Pornhub.com? Can I get to some other, you know, unethical site or whatever the case may be? Can I get to some hacking sites? Those are pretty easy to test to see if they work or not. Phishing, let me show you kind of how to test that. Anonymizer, you could go to, there's hidemyass.com, anonymizer.com. There's some proxies out there. You can look for them to see if your UTM is blocking those. For phishing and malicious websites, pretty simple. Let me pull this up. So I'll just refresh this because I pulled it up yesterday. All of the public lists, they're not very good, because they're public lists, right? These are this is already old information. This is information that's probably a lot of these already they've been up and they're already gone. They've already kind of hit their targets. But they're a good way to test to see if you're being blocked. And again, I'm not behind MDS, but some of these Chrome will actually block even like this. You know, and if you want to test them, you can kind of go through them, or you can maybe go through a few of these and see. Let's say Google over here, Chrome blocking that one too. Chrome's doing a good job today of blocking these. Let's see, PayPal. Okay, here's one that Chrome didn't block. So as you see, it's just a regular phishing site. Oh, okay, block this one too. It's a regular phishing site, but you could kind of go through and you can find some of these. I'll just kind of skip through. Okay, this one actually didn't block. So Barclays, obviously, I don't have my UTM set up to be blocking phishing sites. I'm actually not even behind the UTM right now. But if you clicked on this, MDS would block this. Your UTM should block this. It should not allow you to get to these sites, right? And even the ones that Chrome blocks, if you hit advanced and you just kind of go through, you shouldn't be able to get there. But all of these are phishing sites. It's very clear this is a phishing site. You know, it's not a legitimate site. But openfish.com is a good way to test it. And by the way, these are great to show your customers, right? You can go in and say, well, let's see what happens when a user clicks on the phishing link. Here's some of these over here. And you could show them that, hey, you're actually doing this stuff and you're testing this. And if, when they see that block page, they see the My Digital Shield block page, they'll feel good. They're like, oh, great. If my user goes out there and they click on one of these things, you're actually doing something to protect it. And it's a great, you know, just a reassurance, a sales tool. It's a great way to show them that you know what you're doing and you're actually, you know, hey, we're watching out for you. And then the next time you recommend something from a security perspective, they'll listen to you. The other one is Malware Domain List. So again, not the best site, but this is where malware has been hosted. So you can go out there and you could try to go to one of these places and see if it's being blocked by your web filtering. And you know, hopefully it is. A lot of these, again, it's and it tells you the reason, right? Some of them are phishing, you know, some of them are whatever it is, right? Cerber ransomware over here, so you could try that one out and see if it gets blocked. It tells you what country it's in as well. Trojans, whatever the case may be. But you know, so this is a great way to test it out and just to make sure that UTM is doing a good job. Probably if you're using OpenDNS, this would probably be the only real thing. This and the phishing would be the only real way to test OpenDNS as well. All right, moving along. And again, feel free to interrupt at any point. So from a web filtering perspective, we have over 350 million rated websites. They're categorized in 78 different categories. And just so you know, this is websites, and a lot of websites, they can have, you know, dozens of pages within them that are rated as well. So overall, I think there's over 10 billion pages that are rated, and we get 1.3 million new ratings per week. So either existing sites get re-rated, or you know, there's new websites that come up. So that's to give you an example of the scope and scale of the filtering that's being done there. And again, if somebody provides you some simple whitelist or some simple whatever, or they say, hey, we have, you know, 10,000 websites or 50,000 websites that are whitelisted, you know, that's nothing. You know, they have 1.3 million total. I mean, that's a weekly update that should happen. And this is all of the stuff I'm talking about. This is all called threat intelligence, and threat intelligence is kind of like the key part into doing proper UTM or proper security, is understanding what that threat is, being able to realize it really quickly, and being able to detect it and block it pretty quickly. All right, so I'm gonna go up here. DNS filtering. So this is something like OpenDNS. I know it's popular in the MSP channel. Great tool. It's very easy to deploy, very easy to use, and it was great right until probably Cisco bought them, because they started getting really popular. And me as a hacker, as soon as I realized, man, this stupid DNS filtering thing is really, it's preventing my malware from spreading. It's preventing me from doing my job. So I need to do something about it. And doing something about it is actually not too difficult. And the reason why is, number one, DNS is out of band, right? You have your DNS packet, and then you have your entire full session, right? So it only looks at that web piece. And the other part of it is DNS actually not the first thing that resolves a name. So if you look at the order of which happens, first thing that happens is, Google.com. My system is going to check and say, hey, am I Google.com? Nope. Local cache. Do I have something locally cached? Nope. Do I have something in my host file? Nope. Okay, now I'll go and check DNS. So I know what you're probably thinking and saying, look, 99.9% or even more are going to actually use DNS unless they use a local cache, but these aren't used very often. So what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is Andrew thinks like a hacker, and me as a hacker, I have a lot of opportunities here to inject something in order to prevent you from using DNS whenever checking, whenever I want you to connect to my hosted malware or whatever the case may be. So there's a lot of steps in here that I can leverage as a hacker in order to prevent DNS filtering. That's the point I'm trying to make here. So the other problem is this, and I kind of brought this up, is because 80% of the malware is hosted on legitimate websites, if I went up to, as I mentioned, joespizzashop.com, and I created a directory there, and I put in ransomware, I was trying to clear that, ransomware.zip, well, for DNS filtering, the only thing that it checks is this first part here. So now, even if it knows that there's ransomware up there, it's going to make a decision. Do I say that the entire website of joespizzashop.com is bad or good? Overall, it's good, but it's got this directory over there that's housing ransomware file. So that's a problem again in DNS filtering. When you have regular web filtering, like MDS does or other UTMs, it'll take this URL and say this one's bad, but the rest of it's good. So it can actually distinguish those things. So DNS filtering, although it's an easy way to do it, but there's a lot of flaws there. All right, so any questions so far? Nope. Okay, cool. All right, so there's this kind of new evolution, and I'm glad it's starting to happen because going through all this stuff and explaining to you what all of this UTM does, and again, some of these things are added features, and there's really some more added stuff that sometimes happens, like QoS, but I call this UTM in a box, right, or next-gen firewall in a box. So there's this new thing that I call Elastic UTM. Gartner's finally came up with a name. They call it Virtual UTM, but I think they like my name better. So people are calling it different things, but it's really trying to solve the problem that you guys have probably heard me talk about, which is the cybersecurity trichotomy. When you do UTM in a box, because there's so much threat intelligence that needs to happen on there, you have this problem of you need to make a choice of what you're going to sacrifice. You're going to sacrifice money, performance, or security. And a lot of times what we see out there is people sacrifice security because money is the most important thing. And then the second most important thing is performance because it impacts me right now. So security is the thing that suffers the most. The other important thing is if you're doing UTM in a box, you're doing all the blocking and everything down here at the location after your bandwidth's been polluted, after everything's gone through that pipe. So think of this as the internet. There's bad stuff, there's good stuff. And if you're blocking all this stuff over here and you have a 100 meg pipe, well, there's a lot of stuff going on before you can even see it and prevent it. So how much stuff? Well, actually look this up, and 48% of all internet traffic is bots. It's non-human. So that means that if you have a 100 meg pipe, 48 megs of it is being used up by all bots and everything else. And the rest of it is, yeah.
We have a question. It kind of fits in right here. most MSPs have web filtering through their AV or RMM or something. How do we explain to our customers that they also need it from MDS?
So what kind of filtering? Can you give me an example what it would be for web filtering that you're using?
Greg, if you're there and you want to chat.
I see you're unmuted, Greg, so you can go ahead and just.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking about, I use, used to be Mac SolarWinds. It has web protection. I think that's the same thing, isn't it? And I'm also thinking in terms of, I know that some folks have something other than the antivirus that comes with SolarWinds. They might have a more complete antivirus suite that has web protection as part of it. And you just pointed out that Chrome does it too. Maybe I'm not using the term properly, but I think that web filtering is used already, and this is another layer of it. So the problem I have is explaining to people why we need to have another instance of the same general type of protection.
Yeah, and the answer that I always use is and there's a few answers to this. So number one, I talked about that host-based thing, right? Is if you're protecting it on the host, it's great to do that, but there's vulnerabilities to it. It's great to lock your front door, but you should always lock your back door as well. Because there is the new attacks, they know this, they know that you're using something, they'll find it and they'll try to disable it before you can detect them. The other reason is for web filtering is like things like Chrome, for instance. They'll only detect it if you're using Chrome. If you have a piece of malware that's going out to some site, the malware's not using Chrome, so Chrome will never detect it. Right? If you have an agent that's going out there, it's not using Chrome. That's only the human intervention. And Chrome is okay, but as you saw, right, I kind of filtered. I went through and tried, maybe 5 or 6 different phishing sites, and Chrome blocked some of them, but I found one that it didn't block. So Chrome does a great kind of a baseline defense, but it's definitely not. It's not complete. That's not what they do. They're a web browser. They're not sitting there and they don't do a ton of threat intelligence and try to build up a database of malicious websites and try to build up a system where they can early detect this stuff. They just provide kind of a base layer. Yeah, definitely use it because it's free. And your RMM tools, if they provide some kind of web filtering, great. Yeah, definitely use it if it's there. But having it kind of at the perimeter where it's not on each machine, it's very important as well. And the other part is you can't really install that on a phone, as an example, on a DVR, on any kind of IoT device, right? You can't install a client on there, and those things get infected too. And then the mirror botnet was a perfect example of the DVRs and cameras being infected. That one example I brought up of the IoT botnet, right? It's a bunch of IoTs that are already infected, and there's no client that goes on there that prevents that type of stuff. So it's important to have it as a UTM.
Andrew, this very much goes along with the message that we continue to preach about a multi-layered approach,
Yeah, exactly. So the message is multi-layered approach. The message to your customers is the same thing, right? We need to have multiple layers because you don't just lock your front door, you also lock your back door. And security has different functions. I talked about the 5 core functions and all the things it does. Security is a very broad term, right? And sometimes you guys probably heard me say is you can't replace one with the other. I can't go in there and to Home Depot and ask the guy about this door lock and say, hey, does this thing stop bullets? It's like, what do you mean does it stop bullets? Well, this is security, right? Yeah. Well, I mean, the other guy is selling me this bulletproof vest, and he said that, if I get shot, it'll stop a bullet. Will this thing do the same thing? Well, it's 2 completely different functions. They're both security, but they're completely different parts of security. And it's the same thing, you can't lump everything all into cybersecurity. There's things as diverse as authentication, encryption, and then even just in filtering, right? Because we're kind of in the filtering game, and within filtering you have those 5 core functions: the DLP, the IPS, the AV, and you can't really overlap them, right? They all serve a different function. And then you have host-based and network-based, which also you should use both of those, right? There's some overlap there, but definitely there's advantages of using one versus the other. So yeah, I guess to answer in short, the layers of security is very important, and we see over and over again why that's important, right? It's I just showed you that AVG being disabled, right? That's a perfect example of, hey, if they did that and you didn't have a UTM, you're done, right? If you had a UTM, it'd be able to detect that and then it'd be able to block it. All right, hopefully that answered your question. So going back to this, so you see here that a lot, like traditional UTM in a box, it's it does it way down here, so you're polluting your pipe. Another part of it is 68% of web traffic is ads. So again, really polluting that bandwidth. The Elastic UTM, and MDS is not the only one doing this. There's other companies doing it now. We really started doing this especially in the SMB space. We're the only ones that are doing this fully channel friendly. There's other companies, they focus on enterprise, they do it direct, they don't have a channel program. But really it's taking that inspection and moving it up into the network. A lot of advantages, some of them are very obvious, all of the stuff that gets blocked way up here, it's not polluting your bandwidth, not polluting your pipe. Now this is yours to use, the way that you want to use it. The other one is, because we're doing all the inspection up here, we could actually turn on all the inspection and not sacrifice on the performance, right? Because you have tons and tons of cores that are shared across thousands of customers. The problem we have with UTM is the thing's expensive and it's idle 98% of the time. 2% of the time you want to spike it, and every time it hits 100% because it doesn't have enough power to do what it needs to do. So it really slows you down. So what everybody does is they remove all those inspections that take up all of that performance in order to regain that performance, and then we have problems. Because we're doing that up here, we actually enable so much stuff. I mean, you can't even enable some of the best UTMs out there. If you get the SMB version, you can't enable that much stuff, and I'll actually give you some examples of that here in a minute. All right, so threat intelligence, right? Just to give you kind of like an overall picture of what we do, and we do it so well. You guys know this. We're backed by Assurant up to $50,000 of coverage. So I'm going to move through this really quick. Again, I'm going to use Fortinet as an example, just because I love those guys so much, and I think they do a really, really good job at doing protection. But I'm going to step through and say for instance, okay, I don't want to use MDS. I want to go out there and I want to use something else. SonicWall is similar. They're pretty decent. They're pretty good. And Checkpoint's pretty good as well. They're very similar as well. Everything past that really is Palo Alto's decent. They're okay. I have a lot of friends in the security world. They say anything past Checkpoint or Fortinet is really garbage. I think SonicWall does a pretty damn good job if you set it up correctly. Palo Alto's okay. Things past that are very, very, they're okay. I mean, Sophos, they bought Astaro. They're getting there, but when you start looking at the details, a lot of the friends that I have in the industry, they don't even recognize them as kind of like that high level inspection. But anyways, instead of talking about products, I want to kind of go over. I did some screenshots of a FortiGate, and this is just some guidelines, right? So if you're going to use Fortinet or SonicWall or whatever else you're going to use, please just don't do the defaults, right? I see this happen a lot, and I'll give you some examples. So with Fortinet, for instance, if you go in there and you buy their UTM, go in there and make sure it's licensed properly. Make sure your updated versions are there, and make sure that you change some of the default settings. Some of the things I said, okay, the default is every 1 day to get updates, right? The other default is not to have push, not to accept push updates. Probably a good idea to do it so that if there's some, even within an hour, right? If something comes out, you probably want to get those updates pretty quickly. It could change, if your clients get infected or not. And again, I'm showing this. MDS takes care of all the stuff for you. You don't have to worry about it, but this is if you plan to do UTM outside of MDS. So another one is this, like with Fortinet and probably all of them. I don't know if the other ones give you an option, but Fortinet actually finally put this in the UI before it used to be CLI only. But enable the extended IPS signature set. Now this is not available on all models. This is only available on the larger models because the smaller models cannot handle the full signature set. So make sure you get that, otherwise you're not protecting everything. The other thing that I've seen people do is they'll go in and they'll license it and everything properly, but they don't even turn on the features. So make sure you go in, and because by default all of the features are not turned on, make sure you go in and you turn on the features. And where the feature set is there to turn on, like it's feature select over here, and I don't have it as the main menu. So make sure you do that. You have to do it per VDOM in the FortiGate side if you're using VDOMs there. So past that, there's some default profiles. Do not use the default profiles, and here's an example why. Web filtering, the default profile over here does pretty much nothing, right? So if you look at it and if you go, oh, okay, there's a default web filtering profile, the FortiGuard categories are not even turned on. Nothing's turned on over here at all. The only thing for some weird reason that was turned on is rate images by URL. No idea why that would be turned on without anything else, but nothing's even turned on here. So if you haven't gone in and tweaked your profile, you're doing absolutely zero as far as filtering goes. So go in there, tweak that, make sure you set it up accordingly. There's a lot of other settings in there, so once you enable the FortiGuard category-based filtering, make sure you go in there and there's different things, right? So if you're doing block versus warning versus monitor versus authenticate, there's different ways of doing that. You have to set those pieces up separately as well. And again, I'm not going to go too much into detail. So that's web filtering. Virus. So if you just select the default, there's a couple of things here on the default, and then again, this is for performance reasons. Flow-based versus proxy-based is default selected. Quick scan versus full scan. Luckily, he's actually blocking instead of monitoring. So you'll get some inspection, but you'll get very little inspection over here. So another thing to do, and again, not available in all models, is most FortiGate models are set up to scan 10 meg uncompressed. This is a CLI only setting, so you actually have to go into the CLI and change this. But I recommend definitely increasing that if you can. Some of the smaller models will not allow you to increase it, just again because of resources, because it's going to slow everything down drastically. But again, as a hacker, I know this. All of my virus is going to be at least 11 meg to get past this. So change these things and increase the size if you can. The other thing is, by default, there's a big difference. So Fortinet has 3 different antivirus databases. They have a normal, they have an extended, and they have an extreme. So extreme is every single signature that's ever been created. They call it a wild list and a zoo list. So a zoo list is every single virus that's ever been out there. The signature is enabled and it's looking for it. Obviously, that kills performance, and most FortiGates that are smaller do not have the extreme version. Some of the smaller FortiGates don't even have the extended version. That's the one in the middle. They only have the normal, which is just that wild list. And there's a big difference. The extreme is at least 20 times larger than the normal. There's a huge difference in how many viruses it actually detects. So again, this is a CLI only setting, but definitely recommend going from normal to at least extended. Definitely extreme would be the better one, because as a hacker, I know this, and we see over and over again how old things are being reused, because we know that, hey, it's been 3 years, probably it's not in that wild list anymore. They removed it to gain some of the performance back. IPS, there is a ton of stuff to configure with IPS. Again, this is stuff that we take care of that you don't have to worry about with MDS. But with Fortinet, there's a lot of things to consider, right? One of them is that extended IPS database. Definitely need to do that, but you got to look at, hey, your things like your buffer size, your decoders, there's all kinds of things in there. Like there's rate count thresholds, but all of this is basically how it detects stuff, right? And what it prevents. And again, as an intelligent hacker, not script kiddie, but an intelligent hacker, I know these defaults, and I know how to get past IPS because I know what it's going to do, and at one point it's going to give up and say, I'm just going to let this through, right? So it's important to change all of these defaults here. Application control. So here's the default sensor on the FortiGate. Everything is set to monitor only and not block. So do not use this default sensor. I don't know, except unknown applications. If it doesn't know the application, it's not even going to monitor. It's going to let it through without even monitoring it. It'll let everything through, including botnet, which is crazy to me, but that is the default setting. So do not use the default profile there, right? Make sure you go in there, you actually edit this stuff and make it useful for yourself. The other thing is for C2 and botnet sites, there is a completely different setting, and you'll totally miss this if you don't know it, but it's actually on the interface setting, and it's disabled by default as well. So it's known botnet servers. You can set it to block those, and by default, it is not enabled. So it's kind of one of these things you just have to know you just got to know it's there. Okay, so once you got to go through and you set all the stuff up, right? And there's other things in there as well, like DLP and DDoS and all kinds of stuff. Once you go through and you actually know all the stuff and tweak all the stuff and set everything up, your FortiGate is still doing absolutely nothing. And it's doing absolutely nothing because you actually have to create rules, to be able to do this stuff. And I've seen where people will go through and they'll set some stuff up, but they'll forget to put the stuff in the rules. And again, I used all the default stuff. Do not use these. Make sure you create your own. But you got to create the rules, and you got to, yeah.
We got a question. Does the mobile device need to be connected through the client's network?
The mobile device. This is...
Stuart, if you are still there.
Yeah.
So when you say that does the mobile device need to be connected to the client's network, are you referring to MDS protecting the mobile device? Or are you just talking about in general?
Yeah.
Yeah, so for the traffic to be detected and protected, it's got to go through the UTM, right? So the traffic has to go through it. So in most cases with a UTM, yeah, it's got to be using the Wi-Fi for a mobile device within that environment, so the traffic would go through it. If there is a case where there is some kind of agent or something, this is one thing that I know I've been saying for a long time. MDS is trying to get to a point where we're taking all the mobile traffic, regardless if it's on the client network or not, and be able to send it through your OmniShield. That's kind of the key part, is making sure all the traffic goes through the UTM. And today, typically, the only way to do that is make sure that it's using the Wi-Fi on the client network. As soon as it steps outside, it's unprotected. It's kind of a fact of life, kind of it's just the way it is, unfortunately. But hopefully those type of things are going to be, changing in the future. I know we're working towards changing that with an agent, and hopefully others. There's again, the only way right now that I've seen that mobile's being done from a security perspective is the inspection being done on that mobile device, which is, it's not very good, it's not very reliable, it's got a lot of limitations. I actually worked on a project where actually some of our engineers right now, they were at AT&T, worked on a project where AT&T was doing all of the inspection within the network, and they never launched it. They spent about $10 million building it, and then they never launched the project. I have no idea why, some political thing that happened, but that would have been a great way to do it. Hopefully we get back there to that point where that type of stuff happens, where it's always being able to be detected through the network. Hopefully that answered your question. All right. Again, there's DDoS policy. Make sure you turn those things on. Make sure you tweak it properly. Don't use the defaults. So the general story here, as you see, is don't use the defaults. Another recommendation is this. We do this. Not just inbound, but think outbound, right? Inbound, whatever. But outbound, why is there any reason for somebody to be going to North Korea or Iran or anything like that? There's certain countries that, like within the U.S., just there's no reason for any traffic to be going there. And if there's something legitimate, you can make that one exception. But you should just take some of those countries and just completely block any access to them. Not necessarily from them, but to them. Because if there's something on your network that's communicating out to them, it's probably a bad thing. So just the standard good practice, make sure you do that type of stuff. Hopefully your UTM gives like the geo location type stuff, as opposed to just source destination IP. All right, so shield test. I want to quickly go through and show you some of the things. So what I'll do is I have some screenshots over here of that I took earlier from behind MDS. But also what I want to do is go really quickly and show you over here. I just ran this and failed some of the stuff. So I'm going to go through it. So you can easily, on any web page, you can right-click and go inspect, and it'll bring up this console, this JavaScript console. And the thing that I typically do is I look under the network, and you can look at a couple of things here. The headers are always informational, but you could also look at the preview and response. Sometimes it'll show something, sometimes it doesn't. It depends really on what you're doing. But what I want to show here is just really quickly, step by step, some of these JavaScript commands. So the first one, you don't see a lot of information. All you see is running a command called port scan, right? So that's the port scan part of this. After that, there's a DDoS. There's two DDoS functions that happen in there. One of them is a ping, so it's an ICMP DOS, and the other one is TCP SYN, and in this case, it's using port 21 to try to do a SYN flood. So, and you can kind of see this stuff, right? And there's not a lot of responses in there, but I'll show you some of them. So, as an example, the iCar, right? So over here, it's taking this iCar, and the randomized piece here is to make sure that it's always a different file. It randomizes it, so nothing gets kind of cached or stored within the JavaScript. So it always gives a valid test response. And you can go in here and you can preview, and you can see that, okay, so this is kind of the string over here that the AV signatures are looking for, and you can build your own file, right? But this is like the iCar test file. And you can look at that, and you can look at the preview and response there. So the zip file, same type of thing, right? You can look at that, structured a little bit differently, but at the end of the day, it's got the same iCar string in there. The flash exploit, hold on a second, that's the wrong one. It's the JavaScript one over here. So if we look at this in here, this one over here, oh, wait a minute. That's the SQL injection. This one over here, let's see here. So it's using this flash file, but let's take a look at exactly what it's doing. Sometimes these things are a little bit harder to find. Okay. So over here, we're using a flash exploit. Within this exploit, there's some information about it right here, but you can see it's a compiled exploit that's a flash-based exploit over here that's being used. This one actually, it doesn't do anything. It's an exploit for Flash on Windows on Internet Explorer 8. We actually had somebody compile this ourselves, this exploit, using some exploit code. So it's not dangerous, but it'll get detected by usually IPS, sometimes application control, depends on what you're using, but it should get detected because this is a well-known exploit out there for Flash. So that was a client-side attack. The server-side attack, if we look at it in here, you probably see this and look familiar to you. %27, %20, and %21 equals 1. So you can see this is a SQL injection string that's being used over here for the server side. And I think you could go in here and yeah, you can see the same thing over here. So basically we're taking a SQL injection command and just running it across there. And if you have IPS, this is a very basic SQL injection command. It should detect that and it should see it as a SQL injection and block it. And over here, these are all very similar, but you can see over here value. This is a Visa sample number. This one over here is a MasterCard, American Express, and Discover. So these are all sample credit card number values that it's just taking and uploading. And you see here that it successfully uploaded them all and failed the test. And then these are just images, right, that this is pulling down. If you go in here and go preview, you can see that that's just images that it's pulling down these images here within the JavaScript. So this is kind of just to kind of show you in detail what Shield Test is actually doing, because I know I've had some questions about, hey, is this a legitimate test? Because what is it actually doing underneath the covers? And to show you some of the same stuff I ran behind MDS. So if you go in here, for instance, the iCar zip, right? So this is the zipped infected file. Here, if I go into the preview, and you could try this, right? You'll see the same thing. You go into the preview, and the response that you see on the preview is actually the block page that you would get if you're trying to download a virus file that you would see over here. So the response is actually, hey, we've blocked the file does not make it. And you'll see that these will show up in red, which means that JavaScript wasn't successfully executed. There was a problem or an error that happened. Sometimes it shows like just a standard HTTP error or something, but they'll show up in red, and you'll see that something's being blocked there. As an example here, which one is this? This is the Flash. This is the SQL injection, right? So the SQL injection. So you see here, you've got the My Digital Shield block page. This was using application block, so it was using application control to block it. And you see over here that it has a SQL injection string in there, and that's what it recognized and blocked there. And of course, the transfer attempted to appear a data leak, right? So this is taking a credit card number and trying to upload it. It blocked it using the DLP, and it contained a data leak. So you see all of these kind of block pages that are happening there. So and you could do that, right? You just right click, and I'll kind of quickly show you here how to do that. So let me close this up. So if you have this, I'll just refresh this really quick. If you have this page up, you just go right click, inspect. It'll bring up this console here, and you can kind of see what's going on here. From elements, if you go to network over here, it's blank because nothing's running. If I start the test, it'll start filling this stuff up, and it'll kind of show you what's going on here. And you can follow which command it's running, and then you can kind of look at the headers over here, and you can look at some of the other things. Definitely encourage you to look at this stuff. It may be a little bit technical. If you spend a little bit of time, it gets a little bit easier to actually look at it and understand it. It's just kind of one of these things that looks complicated because we don't look at it on a regular basis, right? But as you see here, same thing came up, same type stuff. You know, you have exact same things here. You have these commands over here that have the credit card numbers and everything else, right? The iCar file, everything else. So definitely, you know, if you want to spend a little bit of time, happy to. If you have any questions, just shoot me a quick email or Facebook message or whatever. Happy to help you out there. If you have any other third parties that are also, you know, have some other tests out there, check it out like this. I've seen a couple. Most of them, I try to contact whoever built it and say, hey, look, clearly this is blocking it. Even the JavaScript shows it, but you're showing it as a failed test. Or they'll put in something in there which, hey, I don't understand why you're saying this is a phishing site. This is not a phishing site, or why this is a malicious site. It's not a malicious site, right? And I've seen some things like that. I just kind of like hate fighting those battles because it feels like you just you just have to keep fighting them, and then keep putting the stuff back up there and have these non-legitimate tests. But if you have questions on that, always happy to answer that for you. So we spent a lot of time, I think much more time than we were supposed to. Any questions at all? I think I'm pretty much to the end of the UTM explanation. I'd like to hear your feedback on if this is good from technical depth perspective, or if it's you'd like to dive in a little deeper in some areas, or maybe not so much. But generally, just wanted to give you an overview of the 5 functions of UTM, what they're actually doing, how you can test to make sure they're doing it properly. Some tools out there you can use. How Shield Test does that, and the complexity of setting up other UTMs. And typically the UTMs, the harder they are to set up, usually the better they are. That's kind of just the nature of it. We're trying to change all of that, but that's kind of like out there so far. That's been the nature of it, unfortunately. And it just kind of leaves everybody in a bad spot. So we're trying to be even better, but trying to remove all that complexity and make sure all of, like, the simple things, like, hey, the default profile, why would you not already tune it properly, right? And I get it, right? A lot of times you don't know the environment, but that's why we go in there and say, hey, is this a retail store? Is this a doctor's office? What systems are they using? That's the MDS system that helps to define all of those settings that I kind of went through on the FortiGate side, defines all of those type of things. The default settings, just standard practice. You should always change those default settings. So if hopefully you are using MDS, makes life a lot easier for you guys. If you're not, make sure you change those things. And if you're not, I'd like to know why you're not using it, and hopefully we can, we can help you guys out to use it better. But in overall, Elastic UTM, that's definitely the way the world's going. I think more and more of the analysts are starting to agree and see this. There's a lot of benefit, to using it. And you guys are going to see this picture more and more as we release OmniWAN, and not only are we blocking all the bad stuff way up here and cleaning up that pipe, but we're also prioritizing, organizing, and making the traffic to where it's a lot better. The applications are functioning a lot better, across that line, bringing back that reliability and security of the internet. So, any other questions? Any comments?
We don't have any other questions in the panel, so if there's anyone else that would like to suggest different types of training, or if we missed something that you guys would like to cover, either asking the question.
I'm going to try to unmute everybody, and
everyone's self-muted.
Oh, everybody's self-muted. Okay, gotcha. All right. Yeah, we don't have a big crowd, guys, so we purposely try to keep this one pretty small. So if you if you have any questions, feel free to ask them, or any comments, any feedback. Is this helpful at all? Is it kind of you're sitting there listening, going like, I don't understand anything Andrew just said. I thought this was going to be something different. Any feedback at all is great. If you'd like to see this more of a, how can I use this information to sell security better? That's great feedback too.
This is Greg. I spoke earlier, and I don't want to keep harping on the same thing, but like what I want to watch, what I want to see on something like this is, I want to have a high-level understanding of the way it all works, which you're giving to me. This is great. I have an old-timey firewall background, but a lot of this stuff is new to me. But I should be able to understand it well enough to explain it to my customers and sell it to my customers. So I do appreciate that, the technical stuff. But I guess what I would like to be able to understand better, and this is really kind of like a problem of mine that I think that maybe a lot of IT guys have is how do we take something like this and explain it to our customers? So if there's a way for you to have one of these type of sessions that takes it and this is how you sell it to your customer. I've already asked that question once already, but that's the hard part I have. Appreciate it though. This is great.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think maybe instead of just doing a gut answer on that, maybe Leonard, we can work on something a little more structured. Because I hear a lot of, how do I sell it? Or people are saying, you sell it like this. I'm going to give you a really quick answer, or like a quick observation, really, that I've seen. Because obviously I'm not out there selling yet, so I don't know a lot of the responses that you get. But I did a long time ago, like 3 years ago. We were a very young company, and I actually went out with some partners on sales calls, and I just wanted to kind of make observations and watch what's going on. And the one that really stuck out in my mind is, no fault of anybody's. The partner goes out there, and now he's got this new thing, security, that he wants to start selling. And it's new to him, and the customers they see it right away because he goes in and says, hey, I want to talk to you about cybersecurity. I wanted to show you some options. What do you think about this? And he's being polite, respecting his customer and everything. But when I look at the customer, look at how he's looking at him. He's sitting there and going like, wait a minute, you're asking me what I think about cybersecurity? I don't even know what that means, if you're asking me, then clearly you're not my expert. And it's kind of like that look in his eyes of that feeling. And after watching him do this several times, and the same answer was always no. I mean, the answer is not always no. It's a well, how much does it cost? And oh, well, what if I don't do this? They ask it in a nice way, and then they give him a kind of like a polite answer of, oh, well, we can't afford it, or this or this. Like, that's complete hogwash. It has nothing to do with money or price. It has everything to do with them being certain that this is what they need, and you're the person to do this for them. Long story short, I talked to this guy and I said, hey, look, let's change our approach a little bit. Here's what I want you to do. Instead of going in there and offering them options and asking them what they think about this, go in there and tell them, hey, I'm sure you heard security is starting to become a big thing. We've been investigating this for a long time, and we've put together some of the best packages, and we're upgrading everybody to a new advanced protection. We want to make sure all of our customers are protected from the threats out there and the new threats that are evolving. And I want to get you upgraded as soon as possible. When can we do it? Can we do it this weekend? And you change the question from, hey, do you want to look at options, or even an option being of, do you need it or you don't need it? It's, you state the obvious that, hey, you do need it, and the only option is can we get it done in time, right? It's like, we're doing this for all our customers. It's you do not want to be left out. You do not want to be left behind. We need to get it done as soon as possible.
The timing now is absolutely perfect with what's been in the news and all over the internet for the last week now.
Exactly. And there's always ways around stuff, right? And I find that somebody says, well, wait a minute, you weren't protecting us before, and no, we were, right? But it's things evolve, right? The threats evolve. It's look, before, nobody had seat belts, nobody had airbags. Does that mean the car manufacturers weren't protecting us? Well, no, they were the best way they knew how, right? And they're like, before, we never had to take off our shoes going through the airport, or they never had any kind of like explosive scanners. Were they not protecting us? They were, right? But the threat evolved, so they had to evolve defenses. And this stuff happens all the time. In the cyber world, it doesn't happen over a decade. It happens sometimes overnight, right? And we are protecting you. We're continuing to protect you, and that's why it's important that we get you upgraded right now and as soon as possible, so we can continue protecting you, right? Not so all of a sudden now we have to protect you. We weren't before, but this is a continuation. This is evolution of protection. It happens everywhere. Cyber world's no different, except that it moves a lot faster, literally at the speed of light. Does that make sense? I think maybe if we put it more in a structured format, maybe it'll help. But overall, the position you take is, look, I'm the expert. It's like you don't go to the doctor and he presents you with options. You go to the doctor and says, look, man, you're sick. You need this medication. You need to start taking it right away. And you do it, right? He doesn't present you with options and you make a choice. You just, you do what he tells you because he's the expert and he acts like he's the expert. In this case, you are the expert. Go in there and tell them what they need. So, if you guys come up with questions later on, feel free to ping me as well. We'll kind of close this off and let you guys get on with your day. And we'll try to set up some more stuff in the future, and hopefully it's not going to be as long. But we'll specifically try to be. I'll try to do something more around less technical and maybe around, hey, all of these protections, why do I need all of them? From more of a sales and positioning perspective, and maybe that'll help
Yeah,
out.
Andrew, I agree. It sounds like maybe the multi-layered approach message, and then the selling, the approach to the sales pitch, the approach to sell an Elastic UTM firewall messaging.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and from the technical side, we're trying to make it easy on you guys, right? You saw all that crazy configuration you have to go through, and that's why, like, I've seen AT&T engineers who set up a FortiGate and they missed a few steps and they weren't filtering anything at all, and that's the way their firewall was set up. And these are security engineers, and it's complicated, right? It's a complicated thing. We're trying to make that stuff easy on you, so it's extremely easy for you guys, but yet you get all the best protection. The key thing is, this stuff is effective. It works. We see this every day. We see so much stuff that we block out there that literally could kill companies, and if you believe that and you understand that, it should be easy to go out there and say, look, I'm trying to do what's in your best interest. I love your company. You're my customer. You're my client. I want you to be around to survive. I'm trying to protect you, and it's taking that attitude, I think, is the number one thing, and acting like the security expert. And the thing is I learned this. I think when I went to work at Checkpoint, I learned that it's okay to say I don't know, but I'm going to find out, and it truly is. You don't have to have all the answers, right? Cybersecurity is a very complicated thing. If they say, well, what about this? And say, well, yeah, there's a lot of angles. I can find out about that for you. I don't know right off the top of my head. Uh, we're trying to build a framework that we know works really well and eliminates 99% of the threats out there. The additional single piece items, we can look into those, and if that's a big concern for you, we can make sure that we have that as part of the package that we're going to set up for you. And again, it's driving towards, we are going to set up this thing for you. If this is a concern for you, we'll make sure we add that in. All right, let's wrap this up. Everybody, thank you very much. Appreciate you joining. Appreciate the questions, Greg, especially you, since you're the most vocal. But if you guys have other questions, any feedback or anything, definitely ping me. Love to hear from you, what you feel, where you hear about this, and if we need to do this anytime again, if we need to make it a little bit smaller or bigger or different, definitely let me know, and we could do that. All right. Otherwise, enjoy your Thursday, and we'll talk to everybody soon. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.